what piece of advice would you give to all other parents?
Don't have biracial kids.
Family brings joy. Childhood destroyed. Hey, it's Tammy's boy. Tammy's boy. Tammy's boy. Hey, it's Tammy's boy.
Tammy's Boy Podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. John Carden is not a licensed therapist. He is just a friend.
Welcome on in, everybody. It's Tammy's boy, and my mama hid moonshine in Windex bottles. I'm happy that you guys are here. Thank you for tuning in. This is the podcast where we talk about parents, and it usually leads to trauma. We've got my talented producer, who's always here with me, Mr. Cole Garrett.
How are we doing, everybody? We got a great episode for you today. I can feel it. The full video is going to be available on YouTube and Spotify. Please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe wherever you're watching it or listening to it. It really helps us out because the more following we can get, the bigger and better we can make these and keep telling you these awesome stories. That's enough out of me, guys. Let's get into this show. John, who do we got on the couch today?
Well, Tammy's kids, today we have a good friend of mine. He is doing the Bobby Rosé. It's a spoof of Bob Ross, which I'm excited for. Dude, the hair is saying it.
Yeah.
The hair is saying, like, you're committed to this act.
Got to.
I love it, dude. It's JordanJ, everybody.
What's going on, everybody?
Yeah, so you got the hair growing for the part?
Yeah, man. I was rocking cornrows for like 6 months, and then I took my hair out, and I just was like talking to some homeboys and stuff, and my homeboy D was like, man, you look like Bob Ross, and we just started cracking up and stuff, and then because I always like enjoy Bob Ross, I was like, it'd be pretty funny to like try to recreate what Bob Ross did, but just in a more comical way, because there was a lot of funny nuances if you watch Bob Ross that if in a I guess in a sketch setting would be pretty funny.
Yeah, Gangsta Bob Ross would be hilarious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I just did the Bobby Rosé rap, which is like basically like trying to just you put something into the algorithm, kind of like fill it out and stuff like that. But like, yeah, it's supposed to be that. I don't want it to be too crazy.
Yeah.
But also enough to where like I can kind of keep that pen busy.
Yeah.
And try to showcase like, hey, this is what I got, ready to give to the world, whatever it might be.
Do you remember the movie My Baby's Daddy? It was Baby's Daddy. It was Anthony Anderson, Eddie Griffin, Michael Imperioli, Method Man was in it. It was from back in the day.
Yeah.
It was one of my favorite. It was one of my favorite movies. Nobody liked this movie. I think it's probably got 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. What we got? 6%. Well, I was way over. It's 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is not a great movie, but Method Man's in it, and he's getting out of prison, and he's playing this part where like he likes to cook, and he's making grilled cheeses with irons, and cooking everything prison style, and then he ends up getting his own cooking show where he's like tenderizing meat with brass knuckles, and shit like that. Yeah. I don't know why, but when you talked about like the Bobby Rosé thing, the Bob Ross food, it almost reminded me of that a little bit.
That might, hopefully, that would be nice to take that course. I mean, I might not be able to do a cooking show. I can cook, but shoot, who knows? Maybe SNL will give me a call.
Yeah, that'd be like cool as shit. Be the next Emerald Lagasse.
That'd be funny though.
Instead of what did he say? What was his Bam? Right? Was that his thing?
Who?
Emerald Lagasse, the famous chef.
I don't even know who that is.
Really?
I don't. And I'm a cook, and I like to cook, so I watch cooking stuff. I haven't heard of that person though.
Damn, Emerald?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
God. Okay, well, I missed on that one.
Yeah, sorry.
So we always start this off really simply, man. It's who raised you?
I would say, I mean, it's hard because I lived with my mom for a good part of my life. Like up till I was like 13, I lived with her. My parents was divorced. So I lived with her till I was 13. I moved in with my dad and stepmom and then my step-grandma. And so, like, I spent most of my time with my step-grandma after that point. I mean, obviously my dad was around, yada, yada, yada. And so I would say, like, really probably all four of them. I mean, I attribute, obviously, young adolescence to my mom. And then later on, as I started to, like, get a little older, 16, 17, stuff like that. I mean,
was it like a Boys in the Hood situation? Like your mom's like, you got to learn to go be a man. Go stay with your daddy, Lawrence Fishburne.
Nah, my dad was like, you need to come live with me. Like, this situation that you're in with your mom is way too, like, it's not good. My stepmom played a good role in that too. Like,
okay, it was just chaotic at home?
Yeah. My mom was like, yeah, she was into some things.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was that time like? That 13 years with your mom?
Man, it was a lot of moving,
Yeah.
a lot of evictions, drugs. Like, I didn't quite know it was drugs. Honestly, I knew something wasn't right, but like she was actually pretty good at, or unless I was just stupid as a kid, but she was pretty good at hiding it. But like her actually physically doing it. But as far as everything else, like it was like, I mean, you look back, if you put it on like paper, you'd be like, there's no way. How did you not know that?
Yeah.
She was on drugs, but it's just like one of those situations where
As a kid, you don't know.
yeah, because I mean, you see people do drugs in movies and stuff like that when you're young, but it's always, I guess, exacerbated? Maybe
it's always exaggerated.
Yeah,
It's always
exaggerated,
embellished.
yeah.
Yes, they always like do a little bit more. Like their lips are white, like
Right.
Pookie in New Jack City.
scratching and all this crazy shit like that.
I've
so,
seen a lot of crackheads. I've only seen one Pookie.
Yeah.
For
real.
It's just the honest truth, and it builds this false reality.
Yeah.
And then when you're in the reality, you're having a hard time accepting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely get that.
Was your mom on drugs?
So
and stuff?
yeah, everybody around me, but it was orange bottle. It was prescribed, but I mean they would also sell their scripts and buy other scripts. And like, there was a lot of trading going on in the pill community.
Okay.
But my mom was always on a barbiturate. It was either Xanax, Valium.
Yeah.
One of those always. And then pain pills on top of it. So
Yeah.
it was the oxys, the perks. My dad was on perks my whole life. My stepdads were on perks and oxys.
Yeah.
So I grew up with everybody on that orange bottle.
That's so crazy that you saying that, because I was literally driving, I think it was yesterday, going downtown to work, and I saw a license plate that said OPM on it. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's supposed to mean opium.
Opium? Yeah.
That's crazy. That's actually pretty trippy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What's your earliest memory with your mom?
Earliest memory, probably her throwing a biscuit at a wall, like that I can remember. Like probably was the most traumatic. Like
Yeah.
like one
Not
time,
even traumatic, just like the first memory you can think of.
Yeah, that's
But
the
yeah,
first
the
one that
biscuit?
comes up. Yeah, because we were living in Midlothian, Texas at the time, I believe, and
Shout out to Midlothian.
yeah,
Damn.
yeah.
Wow.
It was she was making breakfast, and I'm pretty sure she was on that shit, and she made everything else and put the biscuits in the oven, but never started it. But they were frozen biscuits. And so she took the, obviously put it on the pan and stuff like that, but put it in there and then set a timer thinking that she had already turned the oven on, but she didn't. So then like she put everything on the plate and
And she went to get the biscuits.
yeah, she put the biscuits on the plate, and it's like she didn't put it on the table, she just left it at the counter for me to get. And so then when she put it on there, she grabbed it with the towel because she thought it was hot, so she put it on there. So I guess maybe she didn't know it was still frozen. I said, the biscuit's cold. So she just grabbed the fucking biscuit and chunked it at the wall, and it was the flaky biscuit, and that bitch was pretty flaky right then and there. It just exploded.
It's just spontaneously
Yeah,
combusted.
because she got mad. She thought I was just like complaining about the breakfast, but it was really the biscuit was still frozen. So it was like, it's actually pretty funny, but I love Pillsbury. I love
Shout out to the
Pillsbury.
Doughboy. Man, that's funny. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a lot of crazy stuff.
Did she lose her temper like that a lot?
I think only when like she didn't have what she needed. Like
when she
her
was
fix.
withdrawn?
Yeah. Because like when I would come over her house, because my parents had shared custody, so like, but my mom had me most of the time. But like the times where she was trying to hide, most of it was when she wouldn't do it when I was over there. So she would be going, be 2-3 days without, withdrawal, maybe 4 or 5. And she was a teacher as well. Yeah, my mom was a teacher. She was a school teacher.
What was her drug of choice?
Meth.
Meth.
Yeah, it was crystal meth. And so she was doing that. And so that's when it was the worst, like whenever she wasn't on it. But then her behavior towards me got better when she would continuously do it. Like not in front of me, but like looking back, when it's a long story. All right, we can get into it.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
shit. So basically, my mom was on it. Things weren't going like the greatest and stuff like that. And like, I mean, as you know, like somebody's doing hard drugs like that, man, like, it just continuously like gets worse and worse.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
never really stays at like a stable state.
No,
So-
there is no way to like moderate.
Yeah.
drugs like that. You just it grows.
Yeah.
and the need for it grows.
It go worse and worse. I mean, more money you need. I mean, she was making decent money. She was a teacher before I was even born. So she had been teaching at the time, maybe like, shoot, man, like probably 15 years, probably, maybe even more. And yeah, so, as it got worse, things got worse at home. Like we wouldn't be able to stay here. So we ended up living with the drug the guy that actually made it. So like his name was Sean. He's actually in jail right now for manslaughter. But his name's Sean Johnson. I don't fuck him. He's a piece of shit. Like yeah, he used to make the meth, like almost like Walter White. Like this is not no bullshit. In Red Oak, Texas, he would make the meth in the Winnebago in the backyard. But I didn't know that's what it was. Again, this was all later on in life once I figured out what
you just knew you couldn't go to the Winnebago.
Yeah, because he told me, he's like, if you ever go in that Winnebago, I'll kill you. And I'm probably like 11, 12 at the time. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, like, I'm like, all right, like maybe he just doesn't want me to go around his stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of Dr. Pepper all the time. Like, I swear to God, like they had a refrigerator dedicated. It was me, my mom, him, and his mom. And then his grandmother, but she ended up passing away later on. But yeah, we all lived in this three-bedroom house in Red Oak, Texas. And like, I mean, he has a long rap sheet, man. Like, he told me all types of stories. I don't know if all these stories are true, but he told me like he shot a police officer, but they was like in his, like around his backyard and stuff like that, and they wasn't supposed to be there, so he shot one and paralyzed one. And I don't know if that was ever true. Obviously, I never did like look into that, but
yeah,
he could have just been telling me stuff to make me be scared of him, so I wouldn't mess with him.
I had a stepdad that shot his best friend.
Damn.
And killed him in the trailer that we lived in.
Really?
And they brought him back to life.
Really?
And the entire left side of his body was like, you know, could barely use it.
Yeah, like paralysis or something like that.
Pretty much, yeah. And when he got out of prison, his name was Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
When he got out of prison, they warned, you know, my stepdad, and he went and got like an alarm system and all this stuff. And like in the middle of the night, dude, that alarm system went off. We thought it was that dude trying to break in. You know what I mean?
Really?
And so it'd be this crazy moment where like we're all huddling in a bedroom, like scared because this dude that my stepdad shot when he was 23 years old was coming for vengeance.
Oh shit!
It was crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Jeez, that would be pretty traumatizing. Was it a decent alarm system? Like it was loud?
It was like a Brinks. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was a loud one.
Brinks don't play,
brother. Brother, we lived a half mile, a mile from the nearest neighbor. Nobody is hearing that alarm.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
No, I mean nobody.
It's just for the people inside the house.
It's for people inside the house. It's for us.
Damn.
And maybe they'll call the police.
Really?
Yeah, but that's And the police, it's going to take them 20 minutes to get out to where we live.
Damn, 20 minutes?
Yeah, there's a reason he shot him. You know what I mean? You got to handle it yourself.
Yeah.
But,
this is Texas, ain't it?
No, that was in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
North Carolina.
So you're living with the meth dude.
Yeah.
He says, stay the hell away from Winnebago or he'll shoot you. He tells you about all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
When does your dad find out about all that stuff going on?
So I told my dad, like, who he was. And just as a kid, like, I just, like, was trying to, I guess, just tell my dad, his name's Sean, his last name Johnson, which I thought was pretty interesting because that's my last name, but obviously we're not kin. And so then he looks him up on Facebook, and he shows me his Facebook profile picture. And it's probably still the same. People could probably go look it up. It's a picture of him. Well, it's a picture of, it's going to be crazy, bro. Picture of him, like, not even his face, of his ass with underwear. Like, and it's just like his ass in this picture.
Yeah.
I'm not even bullshitting. That was his profile picture at the time. And so, because he had went to prison, I'm pretty sure he was somebody's punk in prison. Like, no disrespect to anybody. I don't need nobody running up on me at a comedy show. But the reason why I say that is because there was this guy that come around, and I think he's out, so I ain't gonna mention his name, but I call him, he'll be Character G. But he used to come to the house, bro.
I love that.
Yeah, Character
Protect
G.
yourself, man.
Yeah, bro. So he used to come to the house, and obviously, again, I didn't know any of this stuff was happening. Like, as far as them doing drugs, like, I didn't, I'm just thinking that these are just like crazy, people, whatever, right? But he used to always come over there. Now, I'm pretty sure he was coming over there for drugs, but he was also coming over because they were cellmates in the penitentiary, and I'm pretty sure that was his.
That was his boy.
It was his boy. Yeah, more than his boy. That was his. So he used to come over all the time.
Do you think he wanted it to be his when he was out?
Yeah, because he used to come over there and they would go into the room, but I would never hear anything. It would be always music playing and stuff like that, and I would just watch TV or whatever.
Sound like that Diddy and Meek Mill footage?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. And one time, my mom and Sean got into an argument, and this one it all dawned on me, and I still didn't know about the drugs, but I was aware enough to know that was something that happened in prison or whatever it is, you know. So that people, you know, get taken advantage of, yada yada yada.
Probably seen American History.
And he was a big dude, right? He was the character G was a big dude. And he was a big black dude. Like I'm talking about swole. You could tell he's been in prison because he had like just the prison muscles. It wasn't nothing that you would just go to Gold's Gym and do.
Yeah.
So anyways, he would come over all the time, yada yada. But then one time my mom and Sean got into an argument, and the argument bled out into the living room where I'm at, and she was like, I'm sick and tired of this, Sean. Like, do you want me to? My mom gonna hate me that I'm telling this, but it is what it is. He's like, she said his name, but I'm gonna say, she said, character G ain't here, so you want me to be your? Yeah, if you want to bleep it, I don't give a fuck. But yeah, so that then made me realize that that's what he was coming over there for. And this, no, I'm not even bullshitting. I found a video camera when I was a kid.
No.
And as a kid, like when this was like video recorders were pretty much going out of style at the time, right? But it was a video recorder. It was like the one with the not the cassette, but it probably had an SD card, but it was big, bulky, but it had the screen that flip out on it. So it was one of those.
What, it look like Convicts Go Wild?
Nah, so it was nobody in it but Sean and his toys. And once I saw it, obviously I closed that bitch. I ain't sit there and watch it. But the first thing that popped up, like the first thing that you clicked to watch was him. He was sitting down on that bitch. Yeah. So all y'all that's in there with Sean, if you watching this, tell him I said hello. He was a piece of shit, man. Like, oh wait, is that too far?
No, I love
okay,
it.
all right.
Hell no.
Like,
hell no.
I'm not like this is shit. Like,
no.
I even like I told my sister that, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm not surprised," because he was that puts everything in perspective. Like it explains all of his behavior and like this guy that would come over and all of these things, man. And it was pretty crazy, and like he was very abusive to my mom. That's why like I have no respect for him or anything like that. Like if you do like drugs and all that other stuff, like you just got your own. I ain't got no issues with people that are doing drugs. I mean, I don't care for people like selling drugs and destroying communities, but it's none of my business necessarily. But when you abusing my mom like that and stuff like that, that's when I have an issue. So like, I mean, there was a couple situations I was there where like, you know, he did something to her. He came out and said, he's like, if you call the police, I'm gonna shoot you between your eyes. So it was a lot of crazy shit like that went on, and like a lot of my dad doesn't even know some of this stuff, but he just knew.
A gangster and a bitch.
Yeah, he was very confused. He was a confused guy. But that's what he did. He would see people that were, I guess, weaker than him, right? I mean, I'm 11, 12. Like, I wish back, my old self, I wish I could go back and, like, you know, beat his ass, because I probably could have, but I was just like, I mean, I can't beat a bullet. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I don't beat him, you know, to unalive him or whatever it is, then he gonna come back for sure, because he was that, he was a crazy guy. He was, my mom told me, she's like, don't ever do anything. He's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think people understand that, like, sometimes in these situations, I know I felt it in certain situations, it is life or death.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like life or death.
Yeah.
It is life or death.
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
Because, I mean, my stepdad could have taken me on a hunting trip.
Yeah.
One quick accident. And that's
Gone.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, that's why I kind of like kept my distance, and then like eventually I moved in with my pops later on in life, and then I would come back over there because like that's my mom. So like, you know, I would go visit her, stay over there, whatever. Just, I mean, I was a mama's boy for a majority of my life, so you can't just, even though that stuff was going on, I still wanted to be around my mom. You know what I'm saying? Because she'll still cook me breakfast and all this other stuff that wasn't happening as much. Because when she was living there, the money was not the greatest. But I mean, especially when she lost her job, like,
she made frozen biscuits and hash browns.
Yeah, nah, she got it down, bro. She started making pancakes. It's hard to make.
She gave up on biscuits.
Yeah, no more
Because
Pillsbury.
biscuits and meth, they just don't mix. Okay,
It's a
biscuits
Bisquick.
is a heroin activity. I need to be drooping if I'm gonna make biscuits.
Yeah, bro. It was.
I can't make biscuits while I'm hyper.
Yeah. It was, man. I tell you this, like, she taught at a school.
What did she teach?
So she got her certification, I think, in Arkansas. That's where she's from.
Okay.
And then she's taught in Texas and DeSoto for a while.
Okay.
And she went down to Marlin
She teach chemistry?
No, she just she teach you how to read. That's what she should teach you how to read the
Probably teach you how to creatively use a light bulb.
Yeah. Screw it, unscrew it. But yeah, man, she was teaching at Marlin, right?
Yeah.
And I get a phone call from Rita, who is Sean's mom, and she was always a good person.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rita. She was dealt a bad deck of cards, man. Like she had a crazy son. It was a lot of stuff. But anyway, she would always like reach out to me, you know, Merry Christmas, this and that. But one time she calls me and said, hey, your mom's in jail. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, she's in jail, yada, yada. Well, then my sister's like, yeah, they found weed in her purse. I'm like, okay, you know, it's not really weed. I didn't know that at the time, but, you know, I'm thinking, oh, okay. Kind of find out it was meth. Yeah. But she left her bag in the freaking the employee restroom. And so then they went through it to figure out whose purse it was because it had to be an employee. And then in that time they found the meth. And it was like, then after that, it was like, I mean, completely downhill. And I go back to my mom's Facebook page every now and again and like look at her.
She
like,
got fired from the schools?
Yeah, she got fired. She went to jail for a little bit. And then I think they didn't put her obviously in, was it prison, right? Is what you consider that. They didn't do that. So
she was just in county?
She was in county and then she ended up doing just a halfway house.
Yeah.
And what's crazy about all of this is that she was a teacher for so long and she was in this halfway house and missed my graduation. And I'm her only son. So like those are like pretty interesting things, like the way the world works. You like what are the chances that, you know, you teach for 20 years? By that time it would have been, you know, it was 20 years I think at that time.
Could you imagine if she was in the halfway house of one of her former students? Yeah,
it would have been nuts.
Yeah.
It's like, and they in there reading together.
Yeah.
He's teaching her chemistry. She's teaching them how to read. Yeah. That's actually pretty funny. You know what? That actually would be a great movie. Yeah, just a movie about my mom or something. It would be. It'd probably be, because I'm not sure. She probably got stories that when I wasn't even around, the shit that happened.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but she's doing all right now. I mean, once you do hard drugs for 10 plus years, you're never really gonna be the same. But she's still love it, and she's taking care of my nephew from time to time.
Is she clean now?
From my understanding, yeah. Like, I mean, I've asked her, and she's told me, yeah, and I think so. Like, I think it's too much. Like, my grandma's getting older. She's taking care of her. She's kind of taking care of my. I don't think she would. And my sister probably wouldn't allow. I know she would. She wouldn't allow her kids around my mom if she was doing that type of stuff. So I'm pretty sure she's clean, but again, it probably changes your brain, like the chemistry and like maybe the makeup, because you ruin your brain by just smoking that shit for 10 years.
Yeah.
So she's all right, but she still has her like her quirks from the drugs. But
yeah,
I mean, she's always been a great mom, honestly. Like,
the thing about when you do those drugs is like you end up in that community.
Yeah.
And that community is a dangerous, crazy ass community.
Yeah.
And it's not really the drugs. Drugs are dangerous.
Yeah.
But it's also all the things the drugs bring.
Right.
And it's the people. It's Sean. It's people like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's people that come in that are there for one reason and one reason only. And that's because you have that commonality.
Very true.
You both do the same drug.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter the personality. It doesn't matter, you know, the person, the mental illness, whatever it may be. You end up hanging with crazy people when you do crazy drugs.
Very. Like, and sometimes it's like once it gets out of control, it's like nothing's gonna stop. The only thing that probably stopped her was the halfway house. It probably helped maybe put things in perspective. I'm not sure if she did anything like after that. For the most part, I mean, I didn't really talk to her that much because I mean you know what I'm saying? Like, that was a weird time for me too. I'm graduating, about to get into the world, and like I don't have a relationship with my mom, but I did for all these years, yada yada yada. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, you look back, there's good memories as well. Like, I mean, it wasn't all just like I don't want to paint this.
What's your favorite memory with your mom?
Favorite, like good memory or just
favorite good memory?
Probably like when so I kind of did miss some points, but there was a point where she was gonna get engaged, but she was dating. Like I consider my stepdad. We all lived in the house for a little bit, and they were both on it. But I think he could control it. Like he was able to like control it because he had a really good job. He was doing the jet bridges, so for the planes and stuff. Like my mom really like she lucked up with this guy, but just the traditional parents that she had told her, and I was sitting there right next to her, said, if you ever get married again, you can never come back home. And she's from the South, like Arkansas, like that's really all they really just care about family and stuff like that. And sometimes she put that over her own happiness of, because I mean he was a good guy to me. I had no issues. Like we had a nice house in Mansfield for a little bit, and so it was like when we would go out on the lake and we go like tubing and all that stuff. That was like probably like some of the best times. Yeah. So, but me and her, like, I mean, or actually she took me to go see Hulk when it first came out.
Like the Eric Bana one?
The very first one that was like, I guess in Eric Bana. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that one, she took me to go see that. And I remember we were like sitting up real close because we got there late and shit. But that was like probably some of the best shit. Like
awesome.
Those little memories, sprinkled throughout. Like I don't hold nothing against my mom. Like shit, whatever I can do to help her, like I will.
Do you identify her more as like a flawed person than a bad mother?
Yeah, for sure. Because she wasn't really. In like retrospect, she wasn't really a bad mom. Like she didn't beat me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my mom maybe,
she let bad people be around.
Yeah. She attempted to whoop me a couple times. You know what I'm saying? So like,
you're a big boy though.
Yeah. So she just never. My dad was that. My dad was the disciplinary, so she didn't have to do it. She did it with my sister because I think her dad, we had different dads, didn't really do it. So my mom was doing that. And she's her daughter, so she's like trying to make sure that she stays on the straight and narrow. But my dad was the disciplinary, especially when they were married and stuff like that. But when they got divorced, I was a little bit of like, I was kind of like wild a little bit. I mean, I wasn't doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff, but I was hanging around like, not the greatest kids, but I wasn't like in drugs or nothing like that.
Did your dad leave it because of drugs or because of other stuff?
I actually never even asked him. Because he's really like, he avoids like any conversation about my mom. Like,
well, he probably doesn't want to speak ill,
Nah, he has like.
He has?
Yeah, because like it's been like times where like it hasn't been recent because my stepmom, she's a counselor and she's doing a lot of good and stuff in the world. But I think she's talked to him like, you can't like, because he would call like jailbird and like, you should ask your jailbird ass mama to, you know what I'm saying? Like, so like those, and he knows that that was my trigger. Like no bullshit. Like I don't play about my mom, even though I talk about it on stage and stuff like that. But like for the most part, like I don't like when he does it because it's like, I mean, that used to be your wife. You know what I'm saying? And that's the mother.
It's a principle thing.
Yeah. So he's cooled down since then. I mean, I think he's realized that. Because if I was to talk about his mama, who he loved dearly, which I mean, I don't have nothing. I didn't know her like that. I mean, I knew my grandma, but not how she was when he was a kid. Cause my grandpa, on the other hand, he was crazy. My dad had some stories about that. Like, they used to. My mom's told me even more stories than my dad probably ever will, as far as like stuff that happened when they was kids. He wasn't like sick, like nothing like that. It was just like old country dude, born in like I think like the 40s or something like that. So. Yeah, back then it was like fist, slap, twigs, belt. You know what I'm saying? Like that was only course action.
Yeah, we had to pick our own switches.
Really?
Yeah. Me and my brother, and I would pick the biggest switch because I didn't like that little motherfucker.
Really?
And he would pick the smallest switch.
Yeah.
Because he was a sweetheart. And then you get in there and you start getting hit with these switches.
Yeah.
And you realize the smallest one hurts.
Yeah, that sting.
Way worse.
Yeah,
okay,
you hear
that shit will cut you open.
You hear that?
Like I literally got cut open from that motherfucker.
Yeah.
My brother's just sitting there getting beat with a broomstick, and I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah. Because they can't swing that. It's hard because if they feel like they swing that bigger stick too fast, it might injure you.
It might injure, so you don't get it as
small
bad.
one, you just.
I know, it ends up cutting you, dude.
It's cut through the wind and cut your ass.
I know. The country life is a different life.
Yeah.
It's a different life. A city kid will have no idea what it's like to have to go outside and pick your own weapon that's going to be used against you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
like select a weapon, but you're getting beat with it.
I was fortunate enough that like we lived in Cedar Hill, so like there wasn't really too many twigs. It was trees, but they were like they're like cedar trees. So it's like the stuff that would come off the tree would just be the bark, but it's like my dad, he whooped me like, but it would just be with the belt and stuff like that. And he was probably we didn't have too many twigs. We cut the grass like a lot, but it was like cedar. I don't think cedar trees really like had too many twigs around. You know what I'm saying?
Like,
so
branches and shit. But like, I think they planted these motherfuckers for this.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I think they planted switch bushes, and they're like, yo, we got to get these kids later on.
For real.
Like 100 years ago, they're like, yo, we're gonna discipline the next 1,000 years of children right here with this one bush.
It's gonna hurt too.
Oh, and buddy, it did. It hurts so bad. What was that transition like though? From like, as you're going from your mom, basically, you know, a meth cradle,
Yeah.
you know, living in that kind of situation, and then you go to your dad, who I'm guessing is a little bit more straight edge, probably is not doing meth.
Nah, hell no. Nah.
Not even close to it.
Not even close. Like I don't think my dad's I don't even know if he's ever even touched like weed or anything like that. Like, yeah, he just, that wasn't his thing. Like he'll drink, like obviously he's not a drunk though. He's not an alcoholic by any means. He drinks on Friday and that's it. Like that's what he does. But like the transition was different too, because it's like we lived in a decent house when I moved in with them. Like we had I'm not decent. It was actually we lived in this place called Lake Ridge. So so it's like a nicer part of like Cedar Hill. And but we were also, I think being poor and being around poor people, which is how it was with my mom, it's like everybody's poor. But being poor around rich people is worse, because we weren't necessarily poor, but like
you're
compared
rich
to
poor.
Compared to the neighborhood, like we were probably on the lower end.
Yeah,
because my dad's working, my stepmom's working, my step grandma was like, everybody was working. But
you're like, why doesn't your mother stay at home with the help?
Yeah, for real. Everybody was working, and they bought the house like right after it was like I think in 2008, and they got it real for a steal, because that was
recession.
So it was a lot of stuff going on, and I heard that. You heard that? Yeah. I didn't know if y'all was testing me. For anybody that didn't hear it, it was a fire alarm. Not the fire alarm. What's the
the beep?
The beep. Okay, all right. Smoke detector. Yeah. I've been seeing people play that on like a podcast where like they'll just play a beep. They'll have like a black guest and they'll just they'll play the beep trying to see if they hear it. I'm like, nah, hold on, you ain't gonna get. I ain't gonna.
Bro, I implore you to walk around this. I don't even want to say it because it's a fire code and I can get in trouble. Walk around this apartment and find a smoke detector.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh man, I only got one in my place.
They've been taken down, dude. I don't deal with the beep and I don't replace the battery. If I can't smell smoke, I deserve to die.
Yeah, you'd be all right. Yeah, it's too much other stuff going on anyways.
I don't sleep that deep. My toes get hot. I'm up.
Yeah. I feel like if a fire starts in the unit, then you got to be, how do you not know what's going on? You know, like absolutely. In the attic is different because you don't know what's going on in the top or maybe on the floor below you, but if a fire starts in your place and you just like so out of it, then it's probably time for you to go ahead and go. Mm-hmm. Unless you not speaking ill of the disabled people that can't move around, but if you got two legs,
if you in a wheelchair and you're on the second floor, you got your own problems.
Yeah, you shouldn't be on the second floor anyways.
You know what I mean? It should be a ground escape, not an aerial assault.
Yeah.
So it was your dad strict, like when you
very man, like. Bro,
and that was probably different than your mom, right?
Yeah, it was completely different. I was super scared of my dad. Like,
did you buck that at first? Like, did you rebel against that?
I think they saw some of my behavior as rebellious, but I didn't really rebel. I wasn't like, I never snuck out. Like, I just was too scared. Like, I was kind of like the class clown in school, but I wasn't like, I would just say stuff.
Yeah,
and I wasn't like pulling pranks.
You would just
like
run
that.
your mouth.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah. My homeboy Cameron Keys has a great joke about like being just the only child and like you gotta like basically you acting up, you gotta get your attention anyways, which is what they always say about kids anyways. But that's how it was for me as well. Like I'd just be at school acting up. But I was so good at talking because I talk so much that I talk myself out a lot of times of them calling.
Yeah, me too.
My dad, because if they call my dad, it's over. Like I've gotten in trouble a couple times over my course, but my grades were good. Like. And I came from Midlothian, where to me, I think the education at Midlothian was a bit accelerated. So when I came to Cedar Hill, I had already learned all this stuff. And that's when I started getting bored because I was like, I learned this already. And then, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, that's how I felt. I don't know if that's really how it was, but that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And so, but I made sure I kept my grades pretty good. But he was strict. Like, I mean, he didn't, like, it was like, I always had to help him in the weekends when I was doing work, which is cool. I think that helped me out. But
how does he feel about you being a comic now?
I think since I did the guest spot for Mike Epps last weekend, I think he's
with it now. He's
been supporting me though. Like he's been telling me like, I'm proud of you and stuff like that. But But at first, you know, I mean, old black man from the South, like they got to see the money coming in and the houses and cars bought before they be like, all right, yeah, this is something actually going on. But but my parents always watched stand-up comedy. I didn't even realize it until I started doing it a couple years in. I was like, damn, they used to watch stand-up all the time. I mean, the first stand-up I ever watched was Jim Gaffigan.
Okay.
He had the joke about Hot Pocket. Yeah. Which is some of the funniest shit ever. When I was like, because that's what we ate, Hot Pockets when I was living with my mom. My friend showed me this video about Hot Pockets. It was some funny shit. But like he's supportive though. I think you know, he probably needs to see some more motion, is what we call it. Yeah. Before he's like 100% sold. But shit, you know how it is. This shit's a grind. Yeah. It'll take a minute. But
I was a white kid in a trailer sneaking up at night to watch Comic View on BET once we got satellite. And Comic View is where I found my love for comedy. It was Lavelle Crawford, it was Ricky Smiley, it was Gary Owen, it was all those dudes back in the day. And I watched so many episodes of Comic View with DC Curry and like even DC Benny and like all these different comics. And then I saw Richard Pryor.
Really.
And I think Richard Pryor was the first person that showed me that you could talk about pain. Yeah. And it was okay. You know what I mean? Because this dude talked about growing up in a brothel, being raised by an Italian dude that was really banging his mom all the time. Yeah. And then he's talking about, lighting himself on fire. Okay. On cocaine and like running down the block and it just that whole, the live at Sunset Strip. And I think that was the first time where I kind of realized that like, my life is not normal. And I realized my life is not normal through just watching comics and them talk about their lives. And it was like, that's what kind of dawned on me where I'm like, one day I might be able to make this funny. Yeah. And I have. Yeah. I have.
I think that's one of the best things about because for Richard Pryor, for you, which is probably going to be like completely in like the opposite direction as far as like who Richard Pryor was, but the person for me at first, like when I first started doing it, was Bobby Lee. Yeah. And how he talked about his like the stuff that he went through. Yeah. And I sent him a DM a long time ago, like which he obviously never read. I mean, but I sent him a message like just,
hey Bobby Lee, answer the DM. Yeah. You piece of shit.
Piece of shit, man. My homeboy works with him, Jaime Garcia. Yeah. They do Tiger Belly and stuff like that. But he was one of the
like a hipster that got fired from a tuna boat.
That's funny. But yeah, he was just like that person for me, like was to be like, you know what, I can talk about my mom doing drugs, even though like he talked about his dad and the stuff that went on and stuff like that, and I was like, you know what, I wasn't able to make this meth stuff funny at first. That wasn't even the first thing. Like, I was just talking about probably like what most first time comics is like bullshit, like. Sex. Sex, whatever it is. And then eventually, like, I was like, you know what? All right, now I feel like I'm at the level where I can create a joke out of this, I guess, this trauma, if you will, Yeah. But, and it, it's panned out. People really like it. There's still more to pick from. Like, some of the stuff that I even told you about, I don't even really talk about on stage. Because, I mean, I started in Dallas, so I think there's a way to finesse when you have, like, a more urban crowd. Yeah. If you talk about too much, like, dark, it's like, all right, like we don't, what I'm saying? It's like we kind of tuning this out. So I'm still trying to figure out how to tune it to where it can appeal to both, black and white or whatever demographic or background you come from.
Is your dad retired or is he still working?
No, he's working. Yeah, I worked with him.
What's he do?
He works for, I think he does a lot of like AV and like CCTV, like networking for like airport. Okay. So he does a lot of that. But he's had his own business for a while of like, he doesn't really do it much anymore, but like hanging TV, setting up security cameras, anything like that, you name it, subwoofers and stuff like that. I mean, I used to work with him when I was a kid. Like sometimes that'd be like the only time I used to see him when I lived with my mom. Was like he needed a helper to come run wires in the attic and stuff.
And it was like small enough.
Yeah, and he like, I say this joke and he doesn't really like it, but I feel like it's true and I feel like it kind of lines up with my mom put him on child support and then he didn't really pay it for a while. It's paid off now, of course, but he didn't pay it for a while. And then when he was like, he had to start paying it was when he started making sure he picked me up to come work. So it's like I was working for my own child support. Yeah, bro, it's kind of crazy. Like he doesn't say like, no, that ain't true. He says like he just like, no, that ain't true, like whatever. this and that. But I was like, nah, bro. I remember like
That's called indentured servitude.
yeah, it's exactly what it was, bro.
That's hilarious.
yeah,
I had to work on a tobacco farm. My mom's third husband.
really.
Yeah, my mom's third husband was the worst one, and that was the craziest one. That was the one that was like most addicted. You know, that was Randy, and Randy just tortured me, and my brother, man. But one of the ways we get punished is he put us out on a tobacco field alone. Like we're talking about 180 acres roughly of tobacco. Wow. And we would start on one end of that field, dude, 3 acre, 4 acre field. And we couldn't come home until the other end was done. Yeah. And even if it was at night, we'd have to go out there with a flashlight and keep working. Like what we had to do was in between the leaves grows these things called suckers. And it's basically like another plant growing out. But you got to go through and break each one of them off so it doesn't take the nutrients away from the leaf because the leaf is the product. Right. And it's the same thing for the top of the tobacco plant. So the top of the tobacco plant grows bloom. Dang. And that bloom is like a big, beautiful bloom, like a big flower. You got to go through and break all those off or else that bloom will take the nutrients away from the leaves. Yeah. And it'll send more nutrients to the leaves, to the flower than the leaves, and the leaves are the product. Yeah. So you got to protect the product. Yeah. And
now I want to have a tobacco farm. I know who I can hire.
Yeah, in a while. I know that shit. I would never do it.
He's gonna be having PTSD out there the whole time,
right?
Dude.
Randy, are you here, Randy?
I'm trying to work out in my head, like with what your dad like did with that, like child support. I'm trying to work out in my head if like that's just like completely fucked up, or if there's some sort of positive like work ethic built.
No, it was definitely positive.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, he could have just not picked me up at all. Like he could have just not seen me. He could have been one of those guys, but no, he made sure to see. And like really, I feel like my work ethic has really like I think that's part like that's one of the biggest parts about like me is my work ethic. And it's because
from Dad.
Yeah, he's working with him all the time. And like I remember one time like there was this time where. Because my parents also wanted to teach me, like, not to be greedy. Like, when I say parents, my mom is obviously one of my parents, but when I just say parents, like, I'm just talking about mom and, stepmom and dad. Yeah. Like, they wanted me not to be greedy. They wanted to teach me not to be greedy. That was, like, a big thing for them. And it was one time we were, like, having this whole discussion about me trying to work, and I was, like, trying to do this, and I was like, I need this money. And they were like, it was like, well, to be greedy, like, you don't want to be greedy, yada, yada, boom, boom. I was like, but everything in the world costs money. And my stepmom, she was going in about to start something else. And my dad was like, you know what, hold on. No, you know what, he's right. Like, and I think in him, at that point, he realized, he's finally taught me something valuable, which, like, you have to work for everything you want. And I have a bit about it, but it's like, it's very true. And I'm pretty sure that made him proud because I finally understood that everything that this whole house that we're sitting in, y'all working to pay this, the water that's coming out of faucets, it costs money. And so like that same thing kept me like always working. Like I can't stand a lazy worker. I'll be honest with you. Like I hate working with other lazy people. Yeah. Because it's just like, especially like grown men, like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You work a job, you like, come on now, everybody have bad days. Like they don't want to work some days, but I think it's helped me push, like same thing with comedy, like, taking risk and stuff like that, just trying to keep it going. I don't want to be complacent with anything. So I think it did teach me a good lesson. Maybe not that specifically, but just I think his intentions were, he was like, I need help. Yeah. It's free. It's basically free, cheap labor. And he was trying to get his business off the ground. So it's like, I don't even hold that against him. Like, because I mean, he stepped in at the right time in my life as far as when shit was like, completely terrible. You know what I'm saying? Like if I didn't come live with him, ain't no telling where I'd be right now. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was also like, and my stepmom I think she played a big part in that, like, of like, just, it was weird though. At first I didn't, Are
you close with your stepmom now?
Very close. Yeah, at first, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's great. Like, yeah, I love her a lot, man. Like, she's I mean, when you're a kid, you got your birth mom and you got a stepmom. I didn't necessarily feel like she was trying to replace, but I just feel like she didn't know me. Yeah. And obviously I didn't know her. But looking back, like the one thing I couldn't stand that she used to make me do, like I hated it, was on the summer she'd make me read. Which a lot of people are like, oh, that's not even a big deal. But for me, coming from, 13 years with my mom, where summer is just like free reign. You do what you want.
Yeah, you just get lost.
And then I gotta read.
Yeah.
Read? Like, I don't want to read. Like, you know, I used to have to take tax tests, like the practice tax tests. Like, I don't know if, tax test was the Texas assessment of knowledge and skill, I think that's what it was. So it was like the state standardized testing.
Ours was called the EOG.
EOG?
Yeah, end of grade.
End of grade?
Yeah.
That's some damn bullshit. Tax sounds so much better. Now it's called STAR or some shit like that.
Yeah, my kids take the STAR test.
Yeah? Okay. So those are like certain things that, but, you know, there's like you can't watch more than 30 minutes of TV a day. And that sounds like prison, bro. Like, obviously I've never been, or it sounds like jail, whatever, but summer when I have no school, I have nothing else to do, I can only watch 30 minutes of TV a day. What else am I supposed to do for the rest? Oh, you got to read. Oh, fuck that. But looking back, it was all to better me. Like, she didn't have to do that. She could have just let me rot. You know what I'm saying? Like, she could have just not tried to, because she's also a teacher, so clearly my dad has a thing for teachers.
Yeah.
But I used to talk about, like, because she's...
What did your dad go through in high school?
Yeah, he went to school, he graduated, everything like that, got his diploma, but I remember sitting at the dinner table sometimes, like, he'd be asking my mom how to spell, like, my stepmom how to spell, like, simple words, and he used to just crack me up.
How do you spell pieces?
Yeah, like, dead ass. Like, it'd be things like that, and, like, looking back on my life, I just thought it was, like, it's just super funny. I feel like maybe he needed somebody to kind of help him, and that was my stepmom, man.
If you had one piece of advice to give any parent based on your own childhood, excluding don't do meth.
Yeah.
What piece of advice would you give to all other parents?
Don't have biracial kids. It's too confusing, bruh. It's too confusing. Now, on a serious note, I would say really push them.
Yeah.
Like, push them. Like, you know, I mean, you don't have to choose their life form. Like, I'm a big person of, like, allowing them to do what they need to do, but also make sure that they're contributing. Like, they're going to be contributing citizens to society, because if not, then you could just turn into somebody that just gets stuck on, like, social programs, which I understand, like, are useful, and they do help a lot of people out. But, like, when it comes to, you know, if you're able-bodied to do something, you want to just make sure that they're kind of giving back and that they're a good person. And I feel like if you instill those principles and, you know, morals into people, like my dad taught me, like, you got to work for everything you want, you know. And I think once you do that, you know, you can find enjoyment in, you know, your pastimes or whatever it might be. So, yeah. But don't have biracial kids.
And don't do meth.
Because it was pretty interesting, like, with the demographic of white side and my black side and how I was kind of treated as a kid.
I bet. I've been to black funerals and I've been to white funerals, and they are two different things.
Yeah.
They are two completely different things.
Yeah.
I've been to white weddings and I've been to black weddings, and they are two different things.
Very two different things, bro. But, I mean, were we nearing the end? Is that what
We're getting close, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just going to...
Go ahead.
Yeah, so when I would go back home to my grandparents, you know, for a lot of time, like, I was the only biracial kid on the white side of the family. And we're talking, my mom's from Wynn, Arkansas.
Oh, man.
Which is...
They're racist.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I don't know how it is now, but I know at one point it was the capital for... The Klan.
Yeah.
And so that's where my mom... Well, she was born, I think, but she grew up in Wynn. And then my dad is from Mariana. So that's like the opposite side of the railroad tracks. Like, it's country, you know what I'm saying? It's in the boonies, basically. But when I go back home, or go back to where my mom's from, and which was Jonesboro at the time, where my grandparents would live when I got older.
I know where Jonesboro is.
Yeah, it was my grandpa. I think my grandpa, I felt like, always treated me a different way. Yeah. Or like my gifts would always be different than my cousins. They would get like good gifts, like guns or like 4-wheel, like just all, like, not all stuff. Like name brand shit, like, you know what I'm saying?
Did they ever gift you racist shit?
Nah, I never got racist, but I always got like Dollar Tree gifts.
Damn.
And I always, it's funny, like, because I always thought, I was like, damn, like, I gotta be a better kid next year. It's like, no, you just gotta be white.
Yeah.
But
you gotta be 50% less black.
Yeah, but full circle, I just think it wasn't even really directed towards me. Yeah. I think it was more probably to my mom, because to
punish her for
because they were I mean, she was raised, you know what I'm saying? Like that you stick with, you know, what it is.
Your race,
but
yeah.
full circle, like right, but a couple years, like it's been a couple years, but before my grandfather had passed, my sister, she got pregnant with her last kid. And she, you know, she was just single mom. She already got 2 kids she's supporting, and so I got her a bunch of gifts for like stroller, diapers, a bunch of stuff like that. And it's Christmas time, and I wheeled in this stroller that she had wanted. She had told me that she was thinking about getting it, so I got it for Christmas. That's the first time I ever seen my grandpa cry. And I think in that moment he realized, like, oh, you don't have to be 100% white to be a good person. Like, you can be, you know, you could be black, you could be biracial, whatever. And I think he kind of, you know, maybe because he cried. I was like, it didn't make any sense for him to cry because, you know what I'm saying? That's what I felt it wasn't, because he gave me some money right before we went back home. He was like, you know, that was what you did. It was like, I was like, basically, it was like a couple words. He was kind of like mumbling because he didn't want anybody else to hear. But it's like, basically, he was, I guess, happy that I did it or whatever. And yeah, he's only given me money a couple times. And so I don't even think it was, I spoke at his funeral and everything like that. Like, I have no resentment towards my grandparents because race for me, bro, is just completely different than what most people that are non-biracial, because I've seen both sides of it. So it's like,
you have a deep understanding.
yeah, I have a deep understanding. And people like,
it seems like just talking to you, you have a deep understanding that humans are flawed.
very, very much
And
so.
I think you learned that in growing up the way that you grew up. And I think it's true. There's no human that's perfect. Every human has flaws. And the sooner you accept that, the less angry you become.
Yeah.
You're not angry about things because you just understand, of course.
Yeah.
Of course it is. You know what I mean? People are like that.
Very true, man. I just think it's like, man, people are gonna be people. Like, we gotta love it.
Say it all the time. Let people be people.
Right. Stay out the way, you know, do your thing, focus on yourself. I always like tell my homeboys, like, especially with comedy, if you worried about somebody being like too busy to text you back, then you ain't busy enough. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we'll hit a comedian that we know and they ain't, you know what I'm saying, they ain't hit us back, hey, you know, whatever. You can't get mad at that. You need to be more busy because you worried about him being like, you know what I'm saying, he's just busy. That's what it is. So
I hit somebody up if they don't want to get on the pod, we keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't sit down and cry about it.
hell no.
There's nothing to cry about. You know, it's like you're right. You got to stay in motion. And the second you get out of motion, like my favorite example of it is when people retire. Old people. They've been working for 60, 50 years, however long they've been working, and they retire, and then maybe 3 months later they pass away. 4 months later, 5 months later, 6 months later, a year later.
Very true.
They lose purpose.
Yeah.
You have to continue to redefine your viewpoint of purpose. You know, and it's like your purpose is not going to be the same, you know, throughout your entire life. It's going to change. It's going to shift. And so you have to understand that just because this purpose ended, it doesn't mean another purpose can't begin.
Yeah.
And I even went through that, you know, with comedy and doing this. There was a time, like even just doing stand-up. I've been doing stand-up for 12 years. And I feel like I lacked purpose because I'm just chasing something that's arbitrary.
Okay.
You know, it's not. It is real, but it's not. Making it is an illusion. The idea of making it in comedy, I think it is a complete illusion. It's a mirage. I don't believe in it. I think you elevate your level of work. I think it's like any job. You can start doing grout and tile, and then end up doing entire houses.
Right.
You know.
That's a really good point. Damn.
Did you have any of those like tensions on your dad's side of the family, or was it all like copacetic?
Yeah.
Like where you were half white.
I think, like, I would say this: we didn't go back home as much. So, like, when I went, like, me and my dad, and like, we didn't go back to that side of the family that much. But there's been, like, I've heard, like, you know, oh, what's up, light skin, or like little stuff like that, which I don't really give a shit, bro.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I mean, I understand why you feel that way about light skins because of, you know, everything that's happened in the past, yada yada yada. But like, we just didn't go back enough, and I'm sure if I was around more, I will say this: I do feel like, I think, just from personal experience, as far as relations with just black people versus with white people, depending on where they're from, I think black people are a little bit more accepting. But it goes both ways sometimes. Like some black people in the inner city, like the city, they ain't really feeling it. But like the country, they like, all right, like, you know, we don't care. Like, you know, you just mind your P's and Q's like everybody else. We ain't really tripping. So I think it depends on where you come from. But
nowadays, half the South is mixed.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's like I went to LA, and when I was in LA, I like LA, but like when I go to LA, I feel like everybody's here biracial. I'm like, fuck this, I gotta go back to Texas.
Yeah, when you're a unicorn.
I kind of like this grit down here where like you get some looks that, hey, I like the afro, and you get some like that boy right there. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like it just kind of just keep you on your toes a little bit, but
then you go to New York and they're like, I wonder if he's Jewish.
Yeah, for real.
Is that a Jew fro or a fro?
Fro. But,
oh man. Yeah, we can wrap it up and dude, thank you.
Hell yeah, man. Thank
you
y'all
for coming
bro.
on, bro.
Hell
this has been fun. I didn't a lot about you I didn't know, and I'm glad I got to learn. It's interesting, right? Like the people that we become because of, you know, the people in our lives when we're growing up. I just wanted to ask you this because I know at one point in my life, you know, I definitely tried pills and I was on pills for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever try meth?
No.
Never, not once.
Nah, man. I saw it was just like even with like any sort of drug, like I've always stayed away from just because like I saw how
it was normalized for you. So that's the thing is like you didn't know it was abnormal if it wasn't for media and other things telling you that it's abnormal, right? So it was like a part of your normal everyday life.
Yeah.
And I think with me, with pills, it was just so normal that I was just on it and didn't even think, oh, this is bad.
Yeah. I mean, it might have been that bad then. Have you ever thought about like maybe it wasn't that bad where you're like, oh yeah, this is bad.
Oh, I mean,
or it could be you so far gone you don't even realize it's bad. Yeah. So it's like you gotta pick one. But nah, man, I never
tried.
Nah, bro. That shit stinks. It smells like rotten eggs, right? It's the sulfur or the sulfite or whatever
nasty.
it is.
They had a meth lab in my barracks.
Really?
Yeah, in the Army.
That's crazy, bro.
That's ballsy.
Yeah, you gotta serve though. So you got. I couldn't.
You
do
serving
it.
while serving, dude.
Yeah, bro. You gotta serve it, bro. But
it's double duty.
I mean, it's never been offered to me for one, unless you got some. But and nah, I just don't think I could ever, cause it's like completely destroyed my mom's like just not even mentally, but like when I was mentioned earlier about the Facebook pictures. Like I would go back to her earlier Facebook pictures, and then you could literally see the progression. Like she'd wear darker makeup, like her face would look different, her teeth were different. Like it was just she would stop smiling so much. And so I think that really traumatized me in a sense, like, never. Because like I really value like my teeth for sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? I could definitely take better care of them. And like my weight isn't the greatest, but I'm not gonna smoke meth to hell no.
Now hold on. Now if we're advocating one thing for methamphetamines, okay, that is the original Ozempic.
And maybe we'll mix it in there and just do both at the same time. But
oh man,
maybe in the next life, man. I got too much riding on. Right, if I had nothing to do in life, like no purpose, I'd probably be into some crazy shit. That's why I say I think I'm pretty grateful, like how I turned out, because I think
purpose is very important.
Yeah, and I told them, I tell people all the time, like, I mean, I'm not a mentor by any means, but I'm saying like people that I run into that I know, like purpose. I'm telling you, like you have your ups and downs, of course, while chasing this, but the purpose really makes you feel like, all right, that's why I'm here. Because I think a lot of people wonder, especially now, like with social media and all this, people like, what am I doing? Like you see a 20-year-old buy a Rolls Royce, you like, damn, like I'm living in my car or something like that. Like what am I doing with my life? So the purpose is super important. And it's like whatever makes you happy. I think whatever makes you happy can make you money. I mean, you look at Bob Ross, like, he really loved painting.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And he was a badass anyway. He went to the military. He has a great story. But like he was making money, his paint, selling his paintings and stuff. I don't even think he made money on his what is it called? Access T? What was it?
PBS?
Yeah. He ended up. I watched the documentary.
Yeah.
I think he ended up signing a contract, but it wasn't for like a lot of money.
No, it wasn't. I think most of his money is like in his estate is like due to his paintings and stuff like that. And they have a brand. Yeah, they have a brand. I guess the Bob Ross brand or whatever.
Happy Trees or something, I think it's called.
They have like paint stuff that you can buy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something called Happy Trees, but I bought like a big ass paint palette of his. It's the big one that he had. I don't know if it's big, 16 by like 24, so it's huge. But
well, I'm excited to see Bobby Rosé.
yeah, man, I'm
stoked
excited
for it. Thank you for coming on, Jordan. This has been good, dude. This has been a great episode.
Hell yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening, for tuning in, for being Tammy's kids. We love you. Thank you for being here. Continue to like, subscribe, do all those things to make this podcast what we want it to be, which is one of the best podcasts in the world.
Damn straight.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I've been John. This has been Tammy's Boy.
Peace.
Did your family bring joy? Was your childhood destroyed? Hey, it's Tammy's boy. Did your mama lie? Did your daddy make you cry? Hey,